title, I was invited to dinner with my wife's dad, the CEO, only to be told I was being replaced by his 18-year-old son after building the company from scratch. He's young and smart, and the company's next CEO, he said. Everyone agreed. I smiled and replied, completely understand. They had no idea that Chapter 1. The Invitation. The restaurant was elite, velvet-draped, candle-lit, and humming with whispered power plays. I wore my best navy blue suit, the same one I'd worn 10 years ago at the groundbreaking ceremony of the very company we were celebrating tonight. A company that didn't exist before I'd poured my blood, sweat, and every hour of my 20s into it. My wife, Clarissa, sat beside me, unusually radiant tonight. Her father, Charles Eddington, CEO of Eddington Innovations, sat across from me, flanked by his teenage son, Lucas, 18, barely shaving. They had just served the wine when Charles cleared his throat and smiled. "You've done great work, Mark," he began, patting my hand like a grandfather handing out participation trophies. "But it's time for new blood." I paused mid-sip. He continued, voice dripping with self-importance. "Lucas is sharp, ambitious, and understands modern tech in a way. Well, in a way you just don't. He'll be announced as the new CEO next quarter." Clarissa didn't meet my eyes. Lucas smirked like he'd just beaten his dad at chess. The rest of the board members nodded like drones, pretending this wasn't absurd. After all, I was the one who built this company, from zero. But I smiled, calmly, coolly. I folded my napkin and said, "Completely understand." And I meant it, because they had no idea what I had already done behind the scenes. Chapter 2. I was never just an employee. The moment I stepped into my car after that dinner, I didn't curse. I didn't cry. I didn't even call my lawyer, because I didn't need to. 10 years ago, Charles Eddington had money, but no ideas, no innovation, no digital expertise. That's where I came in. Fresh out of grad school with a triple major and a rejected startup that almost worked, I had built Eddington Innovations from the first algorithm line to its current billion-dollar valuation. I handled the patents, the branding, the infrastructure. I trained every senior engineer. I handpicked the CTO. I even coded the security architecture myself. But most importantly, I structured the company in a way Charles never fully understood. See, while he was out golfing and networking, I was drafting joint intellectual property agreements, custom software licenses, and silent stock clauses, all protected under my name through my holding company. Because legally, I owned 51% of all the technology that powered Eddington Innovations. I had offered him the opportunity to merge our rights into the company 5 years ago, if he paid me fair value. He declined. "I'm family now," he'd said. "Let's not complicate things with contracts." So I didn't. I let him believe he held all the power, until now. Now they wanted to oust me, replace me with an 18-year-old TikTok investor who had never written a single line of code, who still called ChatGPT magic. They had no idea what Wednesday was going to bring, because at 9 a.m. that day, I was going to lock them out of their own empire. Chapter 3. Wednesday, 9 a.m. Access denied. At precisely 8:59 a.m., I sat in my home office with my laptop open, a hot mug of coffee beside me, and a smirk that hadn't left my face since the dinner. I wasn't nervous. The boardroom would already be filling with executives, junior engineers, and, of course, Charles's teenage son, dressed like he was headed to a yacht party rather than an executive meeting. They were about to launch a new software update, my software, built on a proprietary framework that had never been formally transferred to the company. Why? Because I'd anticipated something like this, years ago. At 9 a.m. sharp, I clicked a button on my secure backend server dashboard labeled Execute Transfer Lockdown. One by one, their systems began shutting down. The touchscreen monitors in the conference room went black. Key dashboards began returning error messages. CRM databases became inaccessible. The AI models they were boasting about, frozen, untrainable, deactivated, and then came the alerts. Error 403. Core licensing access revoked. Product backend authorization failed. API key no longer valid. I leaned back in my chair as panic exploded across their Slack channels, emails, and phones. And then, at 9:03 a.m., I received the first call from Charles himself. I let it ring. Then came the text. Charles. Mark, what's going on? Charles. We can't access anything. Charles. Tell me this is a mistake. Charles. We have an investor call in 20 minutes. And finally, one from my now ex-wife. What the hell are you doing? You're ruining everything. Fix it. I sipped my coffee, then replied, It's not mine anymore, remember? Chapter 4. The Empire. Crumbles back in the boardroom, chaos reigned. Charles was drenched in sweat, jabbing at his tablet while barking into his phone. Get Mark on the line, now! But I was already 10 steps ahead. My number was disconnected, and the emails bounced. Across from him, his teenage son, the future CEO, looked pale, scrolling helplessly through the dead system. Dad, is this like a glitch or something? No, muttered Charles. This is war. At 9:10 a.m., a notice appeared across all monitors still connected to the local intranet. This system, its back-end code, and its proprietary framework are the legal property of Mark Whitman, protected under License Agreement 1028-A. You fired the owner. Good luck. Silence. And then the screaming started. They tried calling in IT. Didn't work. They called in their legal team. Too late. See, I'd already forwarded the license agreement and patents to their investors the night before, with timestamps proving I was never a formal employee, only a contracted CTO who retained ownership of the original framework. All development afterward had been licensed, not transferred. By 10 a.m., the company's top investor, also my former mentor, sent a message directly to Charles in the conference room. Did you really just fire the only person holding your tech together? We're pulling funding immediately. At 11:30 a.m., my wife showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door. Mark, open up, please. I didn't. She screamed through the door. You're ruining your legacy. You're acting like a child. I calmly replied. You said I wasn't worth your time. Turns out, I'm worth the entire company. Chapter 5. When the headlines hit by noon, the company's social media pages were flooded, not by me, but by former employees, partners, clients, and competitors, all sharing screenshots of the system shutdown, the legal licensing documents I'd released, and the investors' mass pullouts. A trending hashtag started on X, formerly Twitter. # fired the founder. Someone even made a meme of Charles shaking hands with his 18-year-old son, captioned, Nepotism speedrun. Day 1, inherited empire. Day 2, empire burned down. The press was relentless. Tech titan ousted own CTO, ignited legal firestorm. CEO's ego move backfires. Company in meltdown after secret license clause triggers lockout. My favorite? The sun rose, the empire sank. 2 p.m., my wife's father calls me. Mark, listen, this has gone far enough. We can negotiate. Let's fix this. You were family. I replied calmly. That ended at dinner. And for the record, I didn't start this. You did when you treated me like I was disposable. Then I added, Oh, and your son just posted a TikTok from the office saying he's so over this and wants to go stream Fortnite full-time. Investors saw it. Click. 3 p.m., my wife shows up again. This time, she wasn't screaming. She was crying. Mark, I'm sorry, I panicked. I didn't know they were planning this. I didn't mean to betray you. I stared at her for a long moment before replying. You didn't stand up for me when it counted. You laughed. You sat there with them and smiled. Now you're only here because your golden nest is burning. Tears streamed down her face. I made a mistake. Please, can we start over? I stepped back into the apartment and grabbed a folder from my desk. Here's the mistake, I said, handing it over. Signed divorce papers. All assets removed. Apartment lease, in my name only. She collapsed to the floor in shock. Chapter 6. The Final Move. 2 days after the firestorm began, the board voted unanimously to remove Charles as CEO. Their once prized family-run empire was hemorrhaging trust and money. In a leaked boardroom audio, one investor bluntly said, "We let a teenager run the helm, and he drove it straight into an iceberg." The company stock hit rock bottom. Lawsuits followed. Clients pulled out of contracts. But as for me, I was already miles away. 3 months later, Monaco. I sipped espresso at a balcony overlooking the marina. The sun dipped into the water as a sleek yacht bearing my new company's name, Trueforge Systems, pulled into port. This time, I was the sole owner. I'd built a new firm quietly with a few loyal engineers, people who actually respected my leadership. We weren't chasing headlines. We were delivering value, innovation, and transparency. And investors? The same ones who fled my ex-father-in-law's company came knocking on my door, this time offering equity on my terms. Epilogue. A message from her. Last week, my ex-wife sent an email. "I'm sorry, I miss us. I was stupid. Can we meet?" I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to her father, who, according to news reports, was living in a much smaller house these days, and battling 3 lawsuits. Final words. You don't always need to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is silence, followed by success. Never underestimate the person you call too expensive. You might just be signing your company's death certificate. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below. Like the story. If you think this story is justified, share it with someone who needs this energy, and subscribe to Lauren's Story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow.